There's a silent killer living inside millions of people right now, and it has nothing to do with the number you see when you step on a scale. You can't grab it with your hands. You can't measure it with a tape around your waist in the usual way. And here's what makes it absolutely terrifying. You can be accumulating deadly amounts of it right now while looking perfectly healthy on the outside, passing every routine checkup your doctor gives you, and feeling completely fine. I'm talking about a type of fat that wraps itself around your vital organs like a toxic blanket, poisoning your body from the inside out. And the research on this is staggering. Studies show that people carrying high levels of this hidden fat face triple the risk of dying from heart disease compared to those with the same body weight but different fat distribution. Let me say that again. Same weight, triple the risk. Your bathroom scale is lying to you. I'm Dr. James Whitemore. I've worked in critical care and emergency cardiology for over 12 years, and I've watched this hidden epidemic claim lives in the ICU over and over again. Heart attacks in people who thought they were fine, strokes in patients whose last checkup was normal, liver failure in individuals who never drank excessively. And when we perform imaging or surgery on these patients, what we find is shocking. Organs completely buried in thick, greasy, yellowish fat that has no business being there. This isn't the soft fat you can pinch on your arm or thigh. This is visceral adipose tissue, and it behaves less like a passive energy reserve and more like a malignant gland secreting poison into your bloodstream every second of every day. Let me paint you a picture of what I've seen firsthand. Imagine opening up someone's abdomen during an emergency surgery. Instead of seeing clean, distinct organs with smooth surfaces, everything is encased in this dense, waxy fat. The omentum, which is a thin apron-like structure that normally drapes over the intestines, is swollen and heavy, bloated with fat deposits. The liver, which should be a rich mahogany color with a firm, smooth texture, looks pale and enlarged, almost greasy to the touch. This is fatty liver disease, and it's happening in people who've never touched alcohol. The intestines are so packed together with fat between the loops that you can barely tell where one ends and another begins. It looks like someone injected lard directly into the abdominal cavity. And I'll tell you, once you've seen this, you never forget it. So how do you know if this is happening inside you? The most reliable tool doesn't require expensive imaging or a doctor's visit. It's called the waist-to-height ratio, and here's how it works. Measure your waist at belly button level. Then measure your height. Make sure both measurements use the same units, inches or centimeters, doesn't matter. Divide your waist measurement by your height. If that number is under 0.5, you're generally in the clear. Above 0.5, and your risk starts climbing. So if you're 70 inches tall, your waist should be under 35 inches. Simple math, but incredibly predictive. And here's the critical part. Combine that number with an honest assessment of your lifestyle. Are you sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night? Are you moving your body regularly? Are you eating real food or living on packaged processed products? Because those lifestyle factors don't just correlate with visceral fat, they directly cause it. Let me give you 2 real-world examples that show how deceptive this fat can be. Think about a professional American football linebacker. This guy weighs 260 pounds. His BMI screams obesity, but when you look at his metabolic blood work, it's nearly perfect. His insulin sensitivity is excellent. His inflammatory markers are low. His blood pressure is normal. Why? Because the vast majority of his mass is muscle, not visceral fat. His fat sits under the skin, not around his organs. Now flip that scenario. Picture a 48-year-old office manager. She weighs 135 pounds. Her BMI is well within the normal range. She looks slim in her clothes, but she's been eating drive-through lunches for a decade, sleeps 5 hours a night, sits for 10 hours a day, and lives under constant work stress. When we image her abdomen, it's packed with visceral fat wrapped around her liver, her pancreas, her intestines. Her fasting insulin is through the roof. Her inflammatory markers are elevated. She's on a fast track to diabetes and heart disease, and she has no idea because she looks thin. This condition even has a name, TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. Why is visceral fat so uniquely dangerous compared to the fat elsewhere on your body? The answer lies in a blood vessel called the hepatic portal vein. This vein collects blood from your intestines and abdominal organs and delivers it directly to your liver before that blood goes anywhere else in your body. It's a deliberate design. Everything absorbed from your gut gets filtered by the liver first. Now here's the problem. Visceral fat sits right in the drainage zone of this portal system. So every toxic substance that visceral fat releases, free fatty acids, inflammatory cytokines, hormone disruptors, all of it dumps directly into the portal vein in high concentration and floods your liver before the rest of your body ever sees it. Subcutaneous fat, the stuff under your skin, releases its contents into general circulation where it's diluted across your entire bloodstream. But visceral fat has a direct highway to your liver, and it uses that highway to deliver a continuous toxic payload. Now you might be wondering, why does visceral fat release inflammatory molecules in the first place? Isn't fat supposed to just store energy? Well, yes, but visceral fat is designed to be your body's emergency fuel depot. In our evolutionary past, when you faced real danger like starvation, injury, or infection, visceral fat would release both energy in the form of fatty acids and inflammatory signals as part of your immune alarm system. That inflammation was helpful for a short, acute crisis. The problem is that modern life creates the triggers for visceral fat accumulation constantly. Poor diet, chronic stress, terrible sleep, physical inactivity, these aren't temporary, they're relentless. So visceral fat grows larger and larger, stuck in a permanent state of low-grade emergency, releasing inflammatory chemicals around the clock even though there's no real threat. The alarm system is jammed on, and it's slowly destroying you. Let's talk about what this fat actually does to your body. When visceral fat continuously dumps inflammatory signals and fatty acids into your liver, it disrupts the way your cells respond to insulin. Insulin is the hormone that tells your cells to open up and absorb sugar from your bloodstream after you eat. When your cells stop listening to that signal, your pancreas has to produce more and more insulin just to get the same result. Blood sugar stays elevated longer, insulin stays elevated longer. And here's the vicious trap. Chronically high insulin specifically tells your body to store more fat in the visceral compartment. So visceral fat causes insulin resistance, and insulin resistance causes more visceral fat. It's a self-reinforcing cycle that gets worse over time unless you intervene. This insulin resistance and chronic inflammation wreck your cardiovascular system. They damage the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of every blood vessel in your body. That damaged lining stops producing nitric oxide, which normally keeps your blood vessels relaxed and your blood pressure low. Plaques start forming in your artery walls. Blood pressure climbs. Your coronary arteries narrow. Eventually, one of those plaques ruptures, a clot forms, and you have a heart attack. But it doesn't stop there. Your brain also suffers. The same metabolic dysfunction that damages your heart disrupts glucose metabolism in your brain tissue, promotes neuroinflammation, and accelerates the accumulation of toxic proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease. Some researchers now call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because of how closely it's tied to insulin resistance. The same hidden fat destroying your heart is also destroying your brain. So what drives visceral fat accumulation in the first place? The biggest culprit is ultra-processed food and refined carbohydrates. White bread, sugary drinks, packaged snacks, sweetened cereals, all of these spike your blood sugar rapidly because the fiber has been stripped out during processing. Your pancreas responds with a massive insulin surge. If this happens meal after meal, snack after snack, all day long, your insulin never comes back down to baseline. And insulin is a storage hormone. High insulin tells your body to store fat, specifically in the visceral compartment. But diet isn't the only driver. Sleep deprivation is a massive factor. When you don't sleep enough, your brain interprets that as a life-threatening emergency. It can't tell the difference between sleep deprivation and being chased by a predator, so it activates your adrenal glands to release cortisol, your stress hormone. Cortisol raises blood sugar and directs fat storage specifically to the visceral area where it can be accessed quickly in a crisis. Even a few nights of poor sleep measurably increases cortisol, worsens insulin sensitivity, and raises ghrelin, your hunger hormone, which drives cravings for high-calorie, high-carb junk food. I've lived this personally during years of night shifts. Driving home at dawn, I'd be stopping for donuts and chips, foods I'd never touch when well rested. It wasn't willpower. My hormones had genuinely changed. Chronic stress works the same way, whether it's work pressure, relationship conflict, financial strain, or even loneliness. Chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated all day long. And yes, loneliness counts. The research on social isolation and metabolic health is striking. Loneliness activates the same biological stress pathways as physical danger. It raises cortisol, increases inflammation, disrupts sleep, and promotes visceral fat accumulation. For our ancestors, being separated from the group was life-threatening, so the body responds to isolation as a survival crisis. People who feel lonely consistently show worse metabolic profiles than those with strong social connections, and visceral fat is part of that picture. Now here's the good news, and it's important. Visceral fat, despite being the most dangerous fat, is also the first fat your body burns when you make lifestyle changes. Why? Because it's the most metabolically active and accessible. When you improve your sleep, start exercising, cut out processed carbs, and manage stress, visceral fat responds faster than subcutaneous fat. People often see their waistline shrink before the scale moves significantly. So what actually works? Aerobic exercise is the single most effective intervention. Brisk walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, these activities force your muscles to pull glucose out of your bloodstream rapidly, dropping blood sugar and insulin levels. Exercise also activates a molecule called AMPK in your muscle cells, which increases the number of glucose transporters on their surface, making them more efficient at absorbing sugar even hours after you've stopped moving. This is improved insulin sensitivity in action. And aerobic exercise specifically targets visceral fat for burning, even when total body weight barely changes. Resistance training is equally critical. Lifting weights or doing bodyweight exercises builds and preserves muscle mass. More muscle means more capacity to absorb glucose after every meal, which means lower insulin levels throughout the day. Think of muscle as a metabolic sponge. The bigger that sponge, the less work your pancreas has to do. Diet-wise, replace ultra-processed foods with whole foods containing fiber. Fiber slows digestion, so glucose enters your bloodstream gradually instead of spiking. Insulin responses stay modest. The hormonal environment shifts from fat storage to fat burning. Prioritize protein as well. Aim for 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, spread across meals. Protein keeps you full and preserves muscle during weight loss. Time-restricted eating can also help. Eating within an 8 to 12-hour window and fasting for the remaining 12 to 16 hours extends the period where insulin is low and your body has no choice but to burn stored fat. After about 12 hours of fasting, glycogen stores are largely depleted and visceral fat becomes the primary fuel source. This isn't magic, and it doesn't work for everyone, but for those who find it sustainable, it's a powerful tool. Here's the bottom line. Visceral fat is not just extra weight, it's a toxic, biologically active tissue with a direct line to your liver, releasing inflammatory chemicals and fatty acids continuously. It drives insulin resistance, damages blood vessels, causes fatty liver disease, raises blood pressure, and sets the stage for heart disease, diabetes, dementia, and cancer, often decades before symptoms appear. But your body recovers faster than you think when you give it what it needs. Measure your waist-to-height ratio today. If you're above 0.5, take it seriously. Improve your sleep, move your body daily, eat real food, manage your stress. Your body keeps score, but it also forgives when you change course. If this video opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling me what resonated most. Your health is your wealth, and the time to act is now. I'll see you in the next one.